Another important section of this essay is uh, Chinua Achebe's attack on language. So, this is not as it sounds. We will see. African writers writing in English don't mean that they are following European model. So, Achebe says that African writers who are writing in English should continue to write in English. They just shouldn't be slaves to European model of writing. Language is not the property or possession of any group or country or continent. Language is a common property as well as de-ethicized. English language is not property of British or American. It does not belong to anyone. African writers are writing in English to make themselves heard. If they write in African language, nobody will come to know about them. They have the problem of communication. African writers writing in English wanted to win the attention of the world, and language is the common heritage of all the people. So basically, this is the idea proposed by Chinua Achebe in this section of the essay, where he says that African writers should write in English if they are comfortable. If they are more than comfortable, they should definitely adopt English um, uh, as their language, so that they can promote African ideas. He says that if African writers are only writing in African language, it will create a barrier. Their message will not be spread across the globe, which is important if an African person is writing about African sufferings to promote a healthier version of Africa in the world, to promote their freedom, their human rights, and their basically better future. So he says that adopting an English language is a good idea. The trick is not to fall victim to the Eurocentric ideas or Eurocentric patterns which appear in European and Western literature, basically. So this is pretty basic, right? Because Chinua Achebe himself writes in English. He has given blockbuster novels in English language. But Achebe is criticized by many other African critics who says that adopting the language of colonizers is basically giving in to them. This is specifically this idea is specifically proposed by Ngugi wa Thiong'o in his essay Decolonizing the Mind, where Ngugi wa Thiong'o says that adopting adopting to write in English is basically betrayal of your particular African tradition, culture, language, and heritage. So it gives unnecessary importance to English language. This he calls the hegemonic position of English language in the world. So English has been given a very elite place in all the world. This language has been given a very elite place, and it cannot be challenged by any other language. That is the truth. That is god awful truth. We cannot challenge the position of English in the world. So colonization has given it that position, and has made it possible that English is now called a global language. But many African critics agree that English language should not be adopted by local writers, because it increases the importance of English language in the world. Similar has been said about the dollar. Stop trading in dollars. This is advice given by many African political analysts, because it decreases the values of African currency. Different nations have different currencies in Africa, and all of them basically trade is carried out in dollars. This decreases the value of African currency. This is also seen in the case of Indian currency. Because we trade in dollars, the currency of India is falling. For now, we can see $1 is equal to 80 something rupees, right? So this is very basic stuff that Chinua Achebe promotes in his essay. After writing his opinions on African writers' use of English language, Achebe clarifies that he is bothered by African writers who have been influenced by European critics. This is mostly about universalism. Achebe says universalism can be a factor in European literature, but African writers should write about Africa because Africa is not Europe. For example, we can take Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It is a very good book, and many of my other students have they can relate to it because it is because something about women in marriageable age all around the world can relate to that. But Africa or even India has bigger problems than that. Okay, so we have a problem of being neo-imperialized right now, and writing about universal topic is not in the is not going to benefit our country or any African countries in any way. We have our own problems to deal with. We have the problem of universal neo-imperialism to combat. So that is what African writers should focus on, according to Achebe. The writers makes it clear that when a Western writer write about Africa, it is with the intention of colonization. So when Western writers write about Africa, they write about it because they want to colonize it, neo-colonize it, or imperialize it. Basically, destroy the economy of country for their own economic benefit. When African intellectuals accept that judgment, they become culturally colonized without even being aware of it. Achebe approves the use of English language but attacks the notion that African writers should adopt the Western modernist post of the angst-ridden writer living on the fringes of society. African tribes are very involved with each other. They form a family. So adopting to lonely themes, the themes of loneliness that is common in European literature, the themes of individualism also that is common in European literature. So that should not and cannot be adopted in English literature just to get the stamp of universalism, universal approval. English language is not the property of British or American. Like all languages, it is common property and common heritage of all the people. Many African writers have adopted to write in English to make themselves heard and gain the attention of the world and direct them towards African plight. So, promoting African plight through literature which is written in English is a good strategy, but many critics disagree with it. Let me know what you agree with, whether English should be adopted by the writers to promote their ideology, or whether we should give up on English and write in our own in our own native language, so as to dismantle the position of English and get and basically promote our own languages to the standard at which they existed before the globalization of English language. Tell me which thought you agree with, and we will see further ideology of Achebe in the next lecture.